My mother laughed and said I'd never own a house like my sister. I said nothing, then bought a house my family could only dream of. When they found out, they showed up demanding to come inside. Let me take you back to where this all started. I'm the youngest of two daughters. My older sister Victoria was always the golden child. She was 3 years older than me, and from the moment I could form memories, I knew I was living in her shadow. Victoria was beautiful, poised, academically gifted, and had this way of charming everyone she met. She graduated top of her class, went to an Ivy League school on a partial scholarship, and landed a corporate job right out of college making 6 figures. Me, I was the artsy one. The dreamer. The one who wanted to study graphic design instead of business. The one who chose a state school over prestige because I actually liked their program. The one who took a job at a small creative agency after graduation, making a modest salary, but doing work I loved. In my mother's eyes, I had already failed at life by age 22. The comparison started early and never stopped. Why can't you be more like your sister? Was a question I heard at least once a week growing up. When Victoria bought her first house at 26 with her lawyer fiancé Brandon, it became the gold standard against which all my life choices were measured. I was 23 at the time, still living in a cramped apartment with 2 roommates trying to build my career and pay off my student loans. I was proud of my independence, proud that I was making it work on my own terms. But to my mother, I was just a disappointment who couldn't get her life together. The breaking point came last Thanksgiving. I had driven 3 hours to my parents' house for the holiday, hoping maybe this year would be different. Maybe this year my mother would ask about my work, my life, my happiness. Maybe this year I'd feel like I belonged. Victoria and Brandon arrived in their Mercedes, and the praise began immediately. They had just closed on a second property, a vacation home in the mountains. My mother practically glowed with pride as Victoria showed everyone photos on her phone. 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, a hot tub on the deck, Victoria said, scrolling through images of a stunning cabin. We got such a good deal on it. Brandon's bonus this year was incredible. That's wonderful, sweetheart, my mother gushed. You two are so successful. I'm so proud of you. I sat there eating my mashed potatoes, trying to be happy for my sister. I really was trying, but then my mother turned to me with that look. That look that said she was about to say something cutting, disguised as concern. Jessica, honey, are you still renting that little place downtown? Yes, Mom. Same apartment. It's actually really nice. We repainted last month. Victoria laughed, not even trying to hide her condescension. You repainted a rental? That's so sad. You know you'll never get that money back, right? I like where I live, I said quietly. But you're still renting, my mother pressed. At your age, you should be building equity investing in property. Victoria owned her first home by 26. You're 25 now, aren't you? I'll be 26 in January. Exactly my point. My mother shook her head like I was a problem she couldn't solve. You'll never own a house like your sister. Not at the rate you're going. The words hung in the air like poison. Victoria smirked from across the table, that superior smile I'd seen my entire life. She'll be broke forever, Mom. That's what happens when you choose passion over practicality. I tried to tell her to go into something more stable, but she wouldn't listen. I felt my father shift uncomfortably beside me, but as always, he said nothing. He never defended me. He just stayed quiet and let my mother and sister tear me down. Something inside me cracked that day, but not in the way they expected. I didn't cry. I didn't argue. I didn't try to defend my choices or explain my 5-year plan or tell them about the promotion I was up for. I just smiled. It was a small smile, barely there, but it was real. Because in that moment I realized something profound. I didn't need their approval anymore. I didn't need to prove anything to them. I could live my life for me, and their opinions literally did not matter. You might be right, I said calmly, finishing my potatoes. My mother blinked clearly, surprised I wasn't fighting back. Victoria looked almost disappointed that she hadn't gotten a bigger reaction. I stayed for another hour, then excused myself, claiming I had work the next day. I drove home that night with tears streaming down my face, not because I was hurt, but because I was free. Free from the need to chase their validation. Free from the weight of their expectations. That night marked the beginning of a change. I'd been playing it safe for years, staying at my comfortable job, saving money, slowly trying to be responsible in the conventional way. But my mother's words, cruel as they were, lit a fire under me. I realized I'd been living small, trying to meet expectations I'd never achieve instead of going after what I actually wanted. Here's what they didn't know. I was good at what I did, really good. I'd been freelancing on the side for 2 years, taking on logo design projects, website work, branding packages for small businesses. I had a growing portfolio and a list of satisfied clients. But I kept it small, treating it as side income, afraid to take the leap into full-time freelancing. That Thanksgiving night, I decided to bet on myself. Within a week, I'd set up a proper business structure for my freelance work. I created an LLC, built a professional website showcasing my best projects, and started actively marketing my services. I reached out to every contact I'd ever made, joined online communities for small business owners, and positioned myself as a branding specialist for startups and growing companies. The response was overwhelming. Turns out, I'd been undercharging for years. When I raised my rates to match industry standards, clients still hired me. Within 3 months, my freelance income exceeded my full-time salary. By month 6, I quit my agency job and went full-time with my own business. I didn't tell my family any of this. What was the point? They'd made it clear what they thought of my choices. I cut contact down to the bare minimum. I responded to texts politely but briefly. I declined holiday invitations citing work obligations. My mother called it acting out. Victoria told relatives I was being immature. I called it self-preservation. For the first time in my life, I was building something that was entirely mine. My business grew rapidly. I hired a virtual assistant, then a junior designer. I developed a specialty in branding for tech startups, and my reputation in that niche community grew. I was making real money, more than I'd ever imagined. But more importantly, I was happy. I woke up excited to work. I chose my clients. I set my boundaries. I built a life that fit me. After about 8 months of this, I had a conversation with my accountant that changed everything. Jessica, you're sitting on a significant amount of cash, he told me during our quarterly meeting. Have you thought about investments? Real estate might be a good option for you. Real estate, the thing my mother said I'd never achieve. I started researching. I met with a real estate agent named Sarah, a sharp woman in her 50s who didn't blink when I told her my budget. She'd seen my business financials, knew I was serious, and treated me like the legitimate buyer I was. What are you looking for? She asked during our first meeting. Something with character. Something that tells a story. I don't want a cookie-cutter subdivision home. She smiled. I think I know exactly what you need. We spent 3 weekends looking at properties. There were some beautiful options, modern lofts downtown, charming bungalows in up-and-coming neighborhoods, even a converted warehouse that would have been perfect for someone else. But nothing felt right. Nothing felt like mine. I was starting to get discouraged when Sarah called me on a Tuesday afternoon. I have something, but it's a bit of a project. Are you open to renovations? Depends on the house. Trust me on this one. Can you meet me tomorrow at 10? The next morning, I followed Sarah's directions to a neighborhood I'd only driven through a handful of times. Millbrook Heights. Even the name sounded expensive. Old money established the kind of place where families had lived for generations, where everyone knew everyone, where the homes were protected by historical society regulations. As we turned onto Rosewood Avenue, I felt my breath catch. The street was lined with mature oak trees that created a canopy overhead. Every house was unique, meticulously maintained, clearly loved. There were wraparound porches, turrets, gingerbread trim, and gardens that looked like they belonged in magazines. Sarah pulled up in front of a pale yellow Victorian with white trim. It was stunning even from the curb. 3 stories, a tower on the left side, stained glass windows, and a porch that wrapped around the entire front and side of the house. It's been on the market for 6 weeks, Sarah explained as we walked up the stone pathway. The owner, Mrs. Eleanor Hartwell, is 93 and moving to assisted living. She's been very particular about who she'll sell to. She's rejected 3 offers already, all above asking price. Why? She wants someone who will love it, someone who understands what this house represents. Her husband built this place for her in the 40s when they married. She's raised 4 children here, buried her husband, and now she needs to let it go. But she won't sell to just anyone. We walked through the front door, and I fell in love instantly. The entryway had the original hardwood floors, slightly worn but beautiful. There was a staircase with an ornate banister, and light streamed through the stained glass window on the landing, casting colored shadows across the walls. Every room had a story. The kitchen was dated with appliances from the 70s and countertops that had seen better days. The bathrooms needed complete overhauls. The wallpaper in several rooms was peeling, and there were water stains on a few ceilings. But beneath all that, the bones were perfect. High ceilings with crown molding, original built-in bookshelves, hardwood floors throughout a fireplace in the living room with a hand-carved mantel. And that turret, the one I'd seen from outside, was a circular room with windows on all sides flooded with natural light. This room, I said, standing in the turret. This would be perfect for my office. Sarah smiled. Should I arrange a meeting with Mrs. Hartwell? Yes, definitely. Yes. 2 days later, I met Eleanor Hartwell in the living room of the house that might become mine. She was a tiny woman with white hair, bright blue eyes, and a firm handshake. Sarah tells me you run your own business, she said, gesturing for me to sit. Yes, ma'am. Graphic design and branding. I work with startups and small businesses, and you're young to be looking at a property like this. Most young people want something modern, something that doesn't require work. I want something with history, something that means something. She studied me for a long moment. Why this house? I thought about how to answer. I could tell her about the investment potential, the neighborhood, the resale value. But something about Eleanor made me want to be honest, because when I walked in, it felt like home. I grew up feeling like I didn't fit anywhere, like I was always trying to squeeze myself into spaces that weren't made for me. But this house, even with all the work it needs, feels like it's been waiting for someone like me. Someone who'll appreciate it, who'll bring it back to life while respecting what it's been. Eleanor's eyes misted over. My Henry said almost the same thing when he first saw this plot of land. Said he could see our whole future here, see the home we'd build together. She paused, touching the arm of her chair gently. This house has held a lot of love, a lot of life. I need to know it will continue to do that. I promise you, if you sell this house to me, I'll honor what it's been while making it my own. Every decision I make will be about preserving its character. She nodded slowly. Then let's talk numbers. The negotiation took 2 weeks. Eleanor didn't need the money quickly, which gave her leverage, but she also genuinely wanted the right buyer, which gave me a chance. We settled on a price that was fair, though it stretched my budget to its limits. The day I closed on the house, Eleanor insisted on being there. After we signed all the papers, she pressed an old brass key into my hand. This was the original key to the front door, she said. Henry had it made the day we moved in. I want you to have it. I felt tears prick my eyes. Thank you. I'll take good care of it. I know you will, dear. I know you will. There's a historic neighborhood in our city called Millbrook Heights. It's old money, tree-lined streets, Victorian homes that have been meticulously maintained for over a century. It's the kind of neighborhood where people have family crests and country club memberships. It's where my mother had always dreamed of living but never could. Victoria and Brandon lived in a nice subdivision with modern McMansions and HOA regulations. Respectable certainly, but not Millbrook Heights. The house I found was an 1890s Victorian. 4 bedrooms, original hardwood floors, a turret with a reading nook, stained glass windows, and a wraparound porch. It needed work, cosmetic stuff, mostly updating the kitchen and bathrooms, while preserving the historical character. The owner was an elderly woman moving into assisted living, and she wanted someone who would love the house like she had. The price was high, even with the needed updates. It would take most of my savings for the down payment and leave me with a substantial mortgage. It was a risk, but I'd been playing it safe my whole life, trying to meet other people's expectations. This house felt like mine, like home. I made an offer. We negotiated, and 3 weeks later, I owned a piece of history in the most prestigious neighborhood in the city. I didn't tell anyone. I hired contractors, designers who understood historical preservation and started the renovation process. I poured my heart into that house, making decisions that honored its past while making it livable for my future. Original fixtures were restored. The kitchen was modernized with period-appropriate details. The gardens were brought back to life. 4 months later, it was done. The house was magnificent. Every room told a story. The turret became my office with built-in bookshelves and a window seat overlooking the garden. The kitchen had marble countertops and top-of-the-line appliances hidden behind vintage-style cabinetry. The master bedroom had an ensuite bathroom with a clawfoot tub and a shower tiled in subway tiles with black fixtures. I moved in on a Saturday morning, and for the first time in my adult life, I felt like I'd arrived exactly where I was supposed to be. I still hadn't told my family. Part of me wanted to show them what I'd accomplished, wanted that moment of validation. But a bigger part of me knew that their approval was worthless. I'd done this for me, not for them. That resolve was tested 2 weeks after I moved in. I was in my office working on a branding package for a new client when my phone rang. It was my mother. I almost didn't answer. We'd barely spoken in nearly a year, but curiosity got the better of me. "Hello, Jessica." Her voice was clipped, annoyed. "I'm calling because Victoria told me you've been telling people you bought a house. Is this some kind of joke?" My stomach dropped. How did she know it's not a joke? "So you're saying you actually purchased property where and how last time I checked, you were barely making ends meet with your little art projects." There it was, the dismissiveness, the inability to see me as anything other than a failure. "I bought a house, Mom, and it's in Millbrook Heights." Silence. Long, shocked silence. "That's impossible," she finally said. "Those houses cost a fortune. There's no way you could afford something there." "Are you lying to make yourself feel better?" "I'm not lying." "Then show us. If you really bought a house in Millbrook Heights, prove it. Give me the address." This was it, the moment I'd been unconsciously preparing for. I could tell her no, keep my sanctuary private, maintain my boundaries, or I could show her, let her see what I built, and finally put this chapter to rest. I gave her the address. "We're coming over," she said. "Victoria and I will be there in an hour." She hung up before I could respond. I sat there for a moment, my heart pounding. Then I made a decision. I texted my real estate agent and asked her to come over. I called my accountant. I gathered every piece of documentation, the deed, the mortgage papers, the renovation receipts, the proof of my business income. I wanted everything ready. But then I thought about it more. Why was I preparing to prove myself to them? Why was I setting up a show and tell of my accomplishments? Like I was still that little girl desperate for approval. I didn't owe them anything. Not an explanation, not proof, not access to my space. I sent a text to my real estate agent canceling the request. Then I walked through my beautiful home, this sanctuary I'd created, and I made another decision. When my phone rang an hour later, I was sitting on my porch swing drinking tea, watching the afternoon light filter through the oak trees lining my street. It was my mother. I let it ring. Then Victoria called. I let that ring too. Then the text started coming. "Mom, we're outside your house. Where are you?" "Victoria, this is ridiculous. Let us in." "Mom," Jessica, stopped being childish. "We drove all the way here." "Victoria, is this really your house? How is this possible?" I could picture them standing at the end of my driveway looking at my beautiful Victorian home, trying to process what they were seeing. My mother, who told me I'd never own a house like my sister. Victoria, who smirked and said I'd be broke forever. They called again, both of them multiple times. I watched my phone light up with their calls and I felt nothing but peace. Finally, I picked up my phone and sent a text to the group chat they'd created. "Get off my property." 4 words. That's all they got. The calls stopped. The text stopped. Apparently 4 words were enough. I sat on that porch for another hour, finishing my tea, watching the sun start to set, feeling the weight of years of criticism and comparison finally lift off my shoulders. My phone buzzed one more time. It was my father. "Your mother is very upset. She says you're being disrespectful. Can you please call her?" I stared at that message for a long time. My father, who'd never once stood up for me, who'd let my mother and sister tear me down year after year, was now asking me to be the bigger person. I typed back, "I'm not being disrespectful. I'm setting boundaries. There's a difference." He didn't respond. The next few days were quiet. I expected more calls, more demands, maybe even a visit where they'd refuse to leave, but there was nothing. Then, a week later, I got a text from Victoria. "We need to talk." I didn't respond. She tried calling. I didn't answer. Finally, she sent a longer message. Mom is really hurt. She doesn't understand why you're acting this way. We just wanted to see your house. You didn't have to be so cruel about it. Cruel. That word struck me. I'd been called sensitive, difficult, stubborn, unmotivated, and disappointing, but never cruel. That was a new one. I typed out a long response explaining everything, how years of being compared to Victoria had damaged me, how being told I'd never amount to anything had affected my self-worth, how that Thanksgiving dinner had been the final straw, how I'd built my business from nothing while they dismissed my work as art projects, how I'd bought this house with money I'd earned, proving that their limited vision of my potential was just that limited. I wrote it all out, every feeling, every hurt, every moment of growth. Then I deleted it. They didn't deserve my pain. They didn't deserve an explanation. They hadn't earned access to my journey. Instead, I wrote, I'm not cruel. I'm just done being treated like I don't matter. When you're ready to treat me with respect, we can talk. Until then, please respect my boundaries. Victoria read the message but didn't respond. 2 weeks passed. I threw myself into work, took on new clients, started planning to expand my business further. I had consultations with 3 startups in 1 week and signed contracts with all of them. My calendar was full, my bank account was healthy, and my home was my sanctuary. Life was good. Then my father called. Jessica, please. Your mother won't say it, but she's heartbroken. Victoria feels terrible. Can't we all just sit down and talk about this? Dad, did you ever once tell Mom to stop comparing me to Victoria? Did you ever defend me when they made jokes about my career? Did you ever tell them they were being too hard on me? Silence. That's what I thought. I didn't want to cause conflict in the family, so you let them hurt me to keep the peace. And now you want me to come back and pretend it never happened, so you can keep the peace again. Do you see the pattern here, Dad? More silence. I love you, he finally said, but I don't know how to fix this. It's not your job to fix it. It's their job to acknowledge what they did wrong. Until that happens, there's nothing to talk about. He sighed. You changed. Yes, I have. I chose myself for once. I'm sorry if that's uncomfortable for everyone else. We hung up, and I felt sad but also relieved. At least with my father, the conversation had been honest. Another month went by. I celebrated my 27th birthday alone by choice with takeout Chinese food and a movie marathon in my turret office. It was perfect. Then I got an email. It was from Victoria. A long message that started with, I've been doing some thinking. I almost deleted it without reading, but something made me open it. Jessica. I've been doing some thinking, and I owe you an apology. A real one, not the kind where I apologize but then explain why I wasn't really wrong. I was cruel to you, especially at Thanksgiving. I said those things because it made me feel superior, and that's ugly. I've always known you were talented, and honestly, I think I was threatened by it. You chose something you loved, and you made it work. I chose money and status. My marriage is falling apart because Brandon and I have nothing in common except ambition. My job is soulless. I own 2 properties, but neither one feels like home. Meanwhile, you bought that incredible house and seemed genuinely happy. I think I've been jealous of you for a long time, and I masked it with condescension. I'm sorry. I don't expect you to forgive me right away, but I wanted you to know that I see you now. I see what you've built, and I'm genuinely impressed. If you're willing, I'd like to try to build an actual sisterhood instead of whatever toxic dynamic we've had. No pressure. Just think about it. I read it 3 times. It was a good apology. It acknowledged specific wrongs, took full responsibility, and didn't make excuses. It was more than I'd expected from Victoria, but I wasn't ready to respond. Not yet. I needed time to process, to figure out if I even wanted a relationship with my sister, and what that would look like if I did. Another week passed. Then my mother sent her own email. Jessica, I've always wanted the best for you. I pushed you because I wanted you to be successful and secure. I can see now that my methods were hurtful and my definitions of success were too narrow. I'm proud of Victoria, but that doesn't mean I'm not proud of you too. I've always been proud of you. I just had a hard time showing it. You're right that I should have celebrated your achievements instead of constantly comparing you to your sister. You've built something remarkable both in your career and now with your home. I'm sorry for making you feel like you weren't enough. You've always been enough. I just couldn't see past my own anxiety about your future to appreciate your present. I hope someday you'll let me be part of your life again, but I understand if you need space. I love you." I sat with that email for days. Was it enough? Was it sincere? Could people really change? I didn't have answers to those questions, but I knew one thing. I wasn't the same person who'd sat at that Thanksgiving table, absorbing their criticism and feeling worthless. I was someone who'd chosen herself. Someone who'd built a business and a life on her own terms. Someone who'd set boundaries and stuck to them. Whether or not I let my family back in, I'd already won. Not because I'd proved them wrong, though I had, but because I proved myself right. Right to follow my passion. Right to trust my abilities. Right to believe I deserved better. I crafted a response to both of them, separate messages tailored to each relationship. To Victoria, thank you for your apology. It means something that you took the time to really think about how your actions affected me. I'm not ready to jump back into a close relationship, but I'm open to rebuilding slowly. Maybe we could start with coffee. No parents, no expectations, just two sisters trying to figure out how to relate to each other as adults. To my mother, I appreciate your apology. I understand that you thought you were helping even if the impact was hurtful. I need you to understand that moving forward, I need respect, not just love. I need you to celebrate my wins without comparing them to Victoria's. I need you to trust that I know what's best for my life. If you can do that, then yes, we can work toward rebuilding our relationship. But it has to be different this time. I sent both emails and felt a strange mix of hope and caution. Victoria responded within an hour, suggesting we meet the following week at a coffee shop halfway between our homes. My mother took 2 days, but eventually replied agreeing to my terms and asking if we could have lunch sometime soon. I agreed to both, but on my terms, at times and places I chose. The coffee with Victoria was awkward at first. We'd spent so many years in our assigned roles, golden child and disappointment, that we didn't know how to just be siblings. But slowly, carefully, we started sharing our real lives. She told me about her marriage problems, how she and Brandon had grown apart. I told her about the challenges of running my own business. For the first time, we weren't competing. We were just talking. "Your house really is incredible," she said at one point. "When Mom gave me the address and I looked it up, I couldn't believe it. That's like one of the best neighborhoods in the city. It needed a lot of work, but it was worth it. Would it be okay if I saw it sometime? Not with Mom, just me. I promise I'll be respectful." I thought about it. My home was my sanctuary. But maybe it could also be a bridge. Sure, but you have to promise. No judgment, no comments about what I should have done differently, no backhanded compliments. Deal. 2 days later, Victoria came over. I watched her walk through my home, seeing her take in every detail, the restored woodwork, the vintage light fixtures, the garden I'd planted, the office where I ran my business. "This is incredible, Jess," she said. And for once, there was no smirk, no condescension, just genuine admiration. "You did all of this, with help from contractors and designers, but yeah, I planned it all." She turned to me with tears in her eyes. "I've been so stupid. I had this image in my head of who you were, and I never bothered to see who you actually are. We were both stuck in roles Mom assigned us. You were the perfect one. I was the mess. Neither of those was really true. I'm not perfect. My life looks good on paper, but it's empty. You have something real here." We talked for hours that day, really talked about our childhoods, our dreams, our fears. It wasn't a complete healing, but it was a start. Lunch with my mother was harder. She cried when she saw me, apologized again, told me she'd been talking to a therapist about her need to control her children's lives. I listened, stayed guarded, but allowed the conversation to happen. "I want to see your house," she said at the end of lunch. "Not yet." Her face fell, but Victoria got to see it. Victoria apologized and respected my boundaries. "We've been rebuilding slowly. When you and I are in a better place, I'll invite you over, but not yet." She didn't like it, but she accepted it. Over the next few months, things slowly improved. Victoria and I started having regular coffee dates. We weren't best friends, but we were becoming actual sisters. She eventually separated from Brandon, and I supported her through it. She helped me land a major client through one of her connections. My mother and I had lunch once a month. She was trying, really trying to be better. She asked about my work without comparing me to Victoria. She complimented my choices without adding a but. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. 6 months after the driveway incident, I finally invited my mother to my home. She pulled up and just sat in her car for a moment staring at the house. When she finally came to the door, there were tears in her eyes. "This is the most beautiful home I've ever seen," she said simply. I gave her a tour, and for once, she didn't criticize. She didn't suggest changes. She just appreciated it. "I'm sorry," she said when we sat down for tea in my living room. "I'm sorry I made you feel like you had to prove something. I'm sorry I couldn't see how amazing you were. You've built something truly special here, and not just the house your whole life. I'm proud of you, Jessica. I should have said that years ago." I felt tears prick my eyes. "Thank you. Can I ask you something?" she said. "That day when Victoria and I came here and you texted us to get off your property, were you home?" "I was sitting on the front porch. You were here the whole time." "Yes." She looked down at her hands. "You could have let us in, shown us around, proven to us how wrong we were. I didn't need to prove anything. That's the difference between who I was and who I am now. I don't need your validation to know my worth." She nodded slowly. "I taught you that you needed to prove yourself to us. I'm glad you unlearned it." We sat in comfortable silence for a while, drinking tea, watching the afternoon light stream through my stained glass windows. My relationship with my family isn't perfect now. We still have our moments, our old patterns trying to resurface, but we're all trying, and that's more than I expected. My business continues to grow. I've hired 2 more designers and a project manager. I'm thinking about opening a small studio space, bringing my team together in person once a week. My house remains my sanctuary, but it's no longer a secret. I've hosted dinner parties, client meetings, and holidays here. I've let people into my space because I'm secure enough to share it. But I still think about that day sometimes, the day my mother and sister stood in my driveway, probably confused, definitely shocked, trying to reconcile the person they thought I was with the evidence in front of them. I think about those 4 words I texted them: "Get off my property." They were the 4 most powerful words I've ever written, not because they were clever or cutting, but because they represented a choice. A choice to value myself over their approval. A choice to set boundaries instead of seeking validation. A choice to build my own life on my own terms. Sometimes revenge isn't about making someone else feel bad. It's about making yourself feel good, about proving to yourself that you're capable, that you're enough, that you deserve the life you want. My mother laughed and said I'd never own a house like my sister. My sister smirked and said I'd be broke forever. I didn't argue. I just smiled because I knew something they didn't. I wasn't trying to own a house like my sister. I was going to own something better, something that was mine. And when they finally saw it, when they stood in my driveway calling and texting, desperate to come inside, I had the power to say no. That's the real victory. Not the house, though I love it, not the successful business, though I'm proud of it. The victory is knowing that I don't need their applause to feel accomplished. I don't need their approval to know my value. I don't need their presence in my life if they can't treat me with respect. I built this life brick by brick, choice by choice, boundary by boundary, and it's mine. That Thanksgiving dinner broke something in me, but it also freed me. It freed me from the need to chase a moving target of expectations. It freed me to become who I actually wanted to be. So yeah, my mom laughed at me. My sister smirked. They thought I was the failure, the disappointment, the one who'd never amount to anything. And then they showed up at my property, uninvited, demanding access, and I got to say no. 4 words. Get off my property. 4 words that changed everything because they weren't just about a house or a driveway. They were about ownership. Ownership of my life, my choices, my boundaries, my worth. And that's something no one can take away from me. I own this house, but more importantly, I own myself. And that's the sweetest revenge of all.